Oh, no, I don't think it was that. Is that where the definite thing came in?
I mean, I've heard it both ways, Aaron. So.
At least you didn't die. You know, there's that. Oh my goodness. Now,
welcome to Truth.Love.Family, where we use God's Word to become intentional, premeditated parents. Here's your host, AMBrewster.
Happy almost Father's Day, everyone. We have many different dads who listen to this show, so it's just as possible that you have, 12 kids as it is that you're expecting your first. But regardless of how many children you actually have, if your wife is expecting, and maybe even if she isn't, my special guests and I are going to introduce you to a super valuable, amazing resource. If your wife is expecting your first, if she has maybe your fifth bun in the oven, if the two of you are just now talking about, thinking about, praying about, trying for your first, I guarantee you will benefit from this book we're going to talk about today. My youngest is almost 11. My wife is decidedly not pregnant, but I thoroughly enjoyed this book and was reminded of some wonderful and encouraging truth along the way. So even if your wife is not expecting a bundle of joy, stick around as I talk with Aaron and Elaina Sharp, aka expert pregnancy survivor, and his wife, Wonder Woman. Aaron is the author of You Got This, Dad, and if their improv is as sharp as their written wit and sound theology, then today's show is going to be fun, inspirational, and challenging. According to their website, oursharpology.com, quote, Aaron is the IT director for Right Now Media, an experienced writer and a graduate of Dallas Theological Seminary. It took him 7 years to get a 120-hour Master of Theology degree. The patriarch Jacob worked 7 years and got a wife. He spent 7 years at DTS and got a degree and a wife. Take that, Jacob. And Elaina also has a Master of Theology from Dallas Theological Seminary, although it only took her 6 years. She has done some freelance writing and curriculum projects, but her day job is being the owner of a commercial plumbing business. God has an interesting sense of humor. She also homeschools the tiny sharp humans. Crazy doesn't even begin to describe her everyday life, unquote. Thank you guys for taking a break from your crazy to join our crazy. Please tell us more about your family, and I really want you to tell us a little bit more about their delightful nicknames that you used throughout the book. I thought they were so fantastic.
You know, the funny thing for us is, Aaron, parenting and writing have almost been on parallel paths for me/us. My first book came out in 2012, but the manuscript was due at the end of April in 2011, and our first child was due middle of May in 2011, and he decided to come a few weeks early. So the first 10 days of his life were the last 10 days of me trying to finish a book manuscript. So
that's really fantastic timing, by the way. That's
great.
It
was amazing. Thank you, baby, and everything. It was awesome.
Yeah. Next book is on family planning and what we don't know about it.
Exactly.
But for us, writing and parenting have sort of really coalesced together, and so at some point, I guess it was inevitable that what we wrote about would involve our family and our kids, and so. What we wanted to do, I'm making a choice to write and put myself out there, and Elaina is too. Our kids don't really have a choice. So to give them a little bit of anonymity, but also it kind of creates these characters of taking their personality traits and kind of developing a little bit. So we went with, our 8-year-old. He had the fortune of having a little bit of life under him before I started giving these nicknames. So he inevitably became the zoologist because he has steadfastly sworn that his path in life will be as an animal expert. The 6-year-old is currently the ballerina, but that may have to switch because in her own words, she has retired from dance.
And our pocketbooks thank her.
Yeah, they do. Our 4-year-old, when we first went with the nicknames, we actually called her the demolitions expert because there was a Christmas where she broke so many ornaments, but she is now
the shatterproof ornaments even.
Yeah,
wow, that's impressive.
But she is now pretty locked into being our fashionista, and our 2.5-year-old, he has gone from being the Jedi because he gave us we had 2 boys and 2 girls. He sort of brought balance to the Force. But he went from being the Jedi to now being the Slugger because he seems to have a real affinity for baseballs and bats and all that. So they have to change as we go along. And then, like I said, Elaina has made the decision to do this, but I've kind of given her the moniker of the Wonder Woman because she sort of keeps the whole family going here. So
Yeah, and it's awesome. The problem is, though, when you write more books and you start using different nicknames, people are going to be wondering, did they have more kids? Did they
Give some up for adoption? What happened to the Jedi? Where did the ballerina go?
Well, if people are following along that closely, then I think that's a good sign for us. We can deal with any confusion. So
Good.
Well, at the time of this interview, Aaron has written 5 books, and Aaron and Elaina have co-authored The Most Important Women of the Bible, all of which I will have linked in the description of today's episode. And one of the things I enjoyed about You Got This, Dad really was its tone. Okay, simply put, it's funny. It just is. You can ask my wife, but you have to be pretty hard, generally speaking, to elicit a laugh from me, especially if you're trying to elicit a laugh from me. Generally doesn't work. But Aaron and Elaina both did that while I read You Got This, Dad. Aaron summed up his approach to this whole writing process by saying this, quote, "Life is hard and then you die is something Elaina grew up hearing. It was a lighthearted push towards keep on keeping on, but perhaps lacked a little empathy. We know that life can be hard and we want to help lighten it a bit. If we can help you find something to laugh, smile, quirk an eyebrow about while you're in the trenches, then our mission has been accomplished. And maybe we will all learn something along the way too," unquote. And I really think that beautifully sums up this book. I did laugh, I smiled, I definitely raised a quizzical eyebrow, and I learned quite a bit. So guys, mission accomplished. You two, well done.
Thanks, Aaron. I mean, we really, from the get-go, wanted to have before us the idea of trying to be encouraging. My paternal grandmother, known to me as Nanny, she's been gone for a number of years now, but she always quoted the verse in Proverbs, of course, from the old King James. There was the way she did it, but that a merry heart does good like medicine. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of have taken that approach to a lot of our writing, the feeling that a lot of times, even if of course, with kids, we've watched Mary Poppins how many times, but that spoonful of sugar sometimes is pretty helpful on a lot of things. So.
Now, I do have to correct a little bit of your humor, though. I have to say something, just to be true to the scriptures. In your bio, you said that in 7 years, you not only got a wife, you also got a degree. But I just have to point out that Jacob not only got a wife, he also got a ton of livestock.
Did my dad offer you any livestock, Aaron?
No.
So there is that. So I mean, let's at least make sure your humor is grounded in scriptural realities. Okay,
that's a good heartfelt correction, Aaron. We'll go back and rework the bio. So
yeah, I think you need to rewrite it, and I think I should. Footnote.
I came out with a little bit of debt. Can that count for livestock? I don't know.
Sure, maybe.
Yeah.
Now, I always love to hear what inspired an author to go through the arduous process, because that's what it is. It's an arduous process of writing. It's hard work. So clearly, you believe this book was worth it. What's the history there? Why this book?
Well, for everything, I think maybe for everybody, but it sure seems to be for Elaina and I. There's what we started out doing, and there's what ended up happening.
Like the plumbing business.
Yeah.
Yes.
For example. Yeah.
Like his first book. I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah. But for us, as we kept on writing, we did the book together, about the most important women of the Bible, and then we were kind of thinking, well, what's next? And processing, we both have full-time jobs. I'm a IT director for an organization, and so we've got these kids. We baby number 4, we wrote the book together while she was pregnant with baby number 4. And so how do we keep doing this? What is the going to provide the return on investment for us as a family, for me as a writer, and encourage people, and began to develop that. And so along the way, began to say, one of the things we really can talk about is family. And my initial idea before this was to write something about my grandparents, and that may still be at some point revisited, because I have 4 kids and 4 grandparents, and I'm not sure which of the 4 was craziest. And
I have an idea, but I'm not going to say it here.
Well, the ones you're thinking of had a long time to have a long track record.
If you put the 4 of them in a single bed, kind of like a Willy Wonka feel, maybe.
Yeah, really is.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Yeah, it really is. But we developing the idea from family, thinking of ancestors, but then kind of moving forward, talking with my agent and talking with a publisher, and it kind of just kept getting workshopped and chopped down to where we had this idea of let's just write a book specifically about pregnancy, and encouraging people to go through that. And it was never. This wasn't the original idea, but it's what came out of that original idea, with a lot of people's input and a lot of wisdom, I think.
That's really awesome. It's fun to know the process of how people boil down and get to a really tight scope for a book. And I love the book. I really do. However, before I explain why, I do want to let everyone who's listening know that Aaron has graciously donated 2 copies of You Got This, Dad to our TLP book giveaways. So stick around to the end of the show and I'll let you know how you can win a copy, your very own copy of You Got This, Dad. And because we're so close to Father's Day, perhaps maybe it'd be an awesome gift for your dad or your expectant dad. For me, the book was so different from the vast majority of parenting books that I review because it has a solid helping of what I'm going to call hyperbolic humor, that great over-exaggeration, which I love so much. And I enjoyed the book because it had the ability to address these deep, significant spiritual truths while at the same time maintaining a lighthearted tone from the beginning of the book to the very end. And I honestly don't think I ever laughed that much reading a book about pregnancy or a book about being a husband or a book about parenting. And I want to take a moment to highlight a really fun device in the book that just stuck out to me, okay? I think it's safe to say that the average parent, at least maybe the average parent who listens to this show, doesn't read a lot of books with footnotes, all right? And for those of you who aren't even sure what a footnote is, footnotes generally provide additional information about a statement or a quote in the main body of the text of the book, but the information is ancillary enough that it's kind of just relegated to the bottom of the page. It's kind of, forced to wear this smaller font for those people who have, the interest in reading extra and who have a, magnifying glass, which, if we're being honest, is just super uncomfortable for everybody. Why'd you even put it in the book and make them feel bad that way anyway? All the footnotes in You Got This, Dad are really kind of fun because Aaron didn't write them. And they're not really intended to be scholarly references citing adjunct books or paragraphs pontificating on theology. These footnotes were all written by Elaina. And it's as if she were reading the book to you and stopping every couple of pages to make her own comments, actually a couple times per page to make her own comments, most of which, if we're being honest, are snippy, but many of which really are just genuinely endearing as well. I promise you that you have never read, I have never read every single footnote in any book ever, but you better believe I read every single one of them and You Got This, Dad. So Elaina, please tell me, whose idea was it for you to fill the footnotes with your delightful takes, and what was your favorite part of that process?
Aaron and I have been racking our brains trying to remember where that idea came up, and the best that we can do, because we're not totally sure, but the best that we can...
We've had 4 kids, so we don't remember what happened last year.
Our brains are mushy at this point. I think what happened was, because I read his writing a lot, even before he sends it to his agent or to the editor. And so I was reading it and I was, interacting with it to him, saying, oh man, this would have been funny. And if I could have responded here. And he was like, we should put it in the footnotes. And we just had an aha moment. Like, that would be so great. And so then I got to have a really fun part in the book. I got to be snarky and I got to, relive my own pregnancy memories. And so we had fun with it.
Well, I thought it was funny because it was funny for lots of reasons. But one of the things that I thought was really cute was the fact that you would correct parts of his story. And, which in theory, had you corrected part of his story, he could have gone back and just edited it and made the story more accurate. But no, it's better for it to remain inaccurate so that you can correct him. I thought that was great.
And let's point out there were a couple of times she corrected me, and it's still out there who is really right.
Yeah, we don't agree on a lot of it.
That is true.
So really, if you think about it, this book is just like dropping in the middle of a marriage conversation.
Exactly. You are the proverbial fly on the wall at this point.
Pretty much.
I mean, if that's what most of the conversations in your house sound like, it's not too shabby. I mean, there are some death threats and whatnot, but otherwise, it's okay.
That's we like to call that Thursday around our house. So
okay, that's fair. Right? And I think everyone resonates with that.
Now, do you remember any particular footnotes that just you really enjoyed? Do you have a copy of the book?
I remember the one about I said something like, really, the person who's in the doctor's office that's not in the stirrups feels uncomfortable?
Yeah.
That one really stuck out to me. I like that one.
I do too. That's good.
I think my favorite was the one she has puts, "Did you die?"
Did you die?
Because that's the perfect illustration of what it's like to be a man who's married to a woman who's pregnant. Because if you get run over by a bus and attacked by angry wolves and survive a nuclear bomb, and you walk in the office back in the house, you have nothing to complain about if she's pregnant. There's nothing you can say because she's pregnant. So you just shut your mouth and move on.
Yeah, because you didn't die.
Yeah,
exactly.
And actually, when you mentioned that, I kind of thought it was one of those moments where, and maybe I misread it, or maybe I'm thinking of another one, because I thought when she said that, it was basically like, you had done something you shouldn't have as a father, as our expectant husband, and basically she was just saying, yeah, but I didn't kill you.
Which I was just kind of like a little bit.
No, I don't think it was that. Is that where the death thing came in?
I mean, I've heard it both ways, Aaron. So.
At least you didn't die. There's that. Oh my goodness. Now,
I do want to take a moment to talk about the spiritual significance of the book, because it's there. It's deep, and I love it. Many times, though, with a book of this flavor, if it's lighthearted and it's funny, it just tends to lack any significant depth. So I have to admit that I was pleasantly surprised when Aaron unleashed like this thoroughly biblical, theologically accurate, and extremely practical application alongside his quick wit. In fact, if I'm being honest, I probably wouldn't love the book as much as I do had those elements been missing. It would have been a fun read, but the real life-changing power of the book would have been gone. So, and this is primarily for Aaron, but I'd love to hear Elaina's thoughts as well. Talk to us about the spiritual significance and the purpose you had for this book.
Yeah, one of the things, Aaron, that I think that's really on Elaina and I's heart as we write, as we parent, as we live, really, is when we talk to people or even just talk to ourselves, is this idea that I think too many times we divorce parts of life from each other that shouldn't be divorced from each other. And I think we say, well, if there's humor, they're not taking things seriously. And sure, there are. I mean, one of the big things we do when we try to do a family prayer time, it is this big, like, okay, guys, we're talking to God. This isn't the time to be doing what it is you're doing. But it's like, how do we though put that back together where we can laugh, and that brings levity, like we talked about earlier, my grandmother quoting that a merry heart does good like medicine. Well, if you need medicine, it's because you're sick, and most of us wouldn't consider that to be quote unquote a laughing matter, but that's what having a merry heart and encouragement does. So I think there's something to be said for there's wisdom in humor and in finding wit and wisdom in life that helps us get through hard times and helps us endure things that may be a little difficult.
I like that mix, because you sometimes when you're being spiritual, people expect you to be solemn. I actually had the opportunity to portray Christ on stage for 7 years in a performance in Chicago. And the very first time I did it, I had someone very well-meaning, someone gracious and kind come up to me and thank me for what I did and whatnot. But they did want to throw in this little idea that, I expected Christ to be more somber, more solemn, kind of had this sagely, Obi-Wan Kenobi type of picture in their mind. But I spent a lot of the show, and when it was appropriate, smiling. Because, Jesus, yes, was perfectly holy, but he also was perfectly joyful. I imagine that he probably had a fantastic sense of humor.
Yes, I always say I think that God has a great sense of humor when things don't go as we're planning on. He's probably amused a little bit at when we whine and when we kick and scream and work against it. But
and I think heaven's going to be a place where there's going to be there are going to be jokes, there's going to be fun, there's going to be humor. I believe that with all of my heart.
Well, one of the things we talked about it earlier with my grandparents who are all gone now, but we all the time, my parents and I will sit down and look at my kids and say, man, I bet your grandparents are dying laughing up in heaven. You know what I mean? Like they've just got to be cracking up at what you're dealing with, And, I think that's part of even very difficult times is looking at it and finding the humor. Like I kind of imagine God before he sent us our slugger saying, "Hey, watch this. Here it comes." You know what I mean? Like getting the angels around to be like, "Wait till you see what I'm about to do." So.
I think he did that before each one of the kids, to be honest.
That's
each
what
in
I'm
their
picking
own
up.
little way.
I love on your Instagram the little quotes you share from the kids. I think those are fantastic. They're beautiful. And I think in a way, it's like, I think maybe humor runs in your family in a way it maybe doesn't in other families. I don't know. But man, because your kids got some quick wit.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think they're even trying to be funny.
I think the takeaway practically is we need people to pray for us, Aaron. I think
please.
That's what that means.
Exactly.
Well, I do remember specifically enjoying the spiritual emphasis of chapters 9 and chapters 25. Chapter 25 is called "The Wonder of It All," and it's this beautiful end to the book. But what's really interesting is that chapter 9, it was about registering for baby showers. And still, I remember the significance of that chapter from a spiritual standpoint. Do you mind discussing, like, for you, the theological implications for registering for a baby shower?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, and Elaina can probably chime in and correct me here too. But when we were, you take a book like this, and it kind of loosely follows the path of a pregnancy, right? You start out with finding out, and you all the way till, hey, you're in labor, the baby's coming. And one of the things that we talked about was remembering when we were registering and the pregnancy meltdowns that Elaina would have over just these random things. I think picking out baby bottles.
Meltdowns, really? Are they meltdowns though? Since the toddlers have meltdowns, can we use a different word?
That's fine. These
blow up, maybe? Blow up? I don't know.
These incidents that would happen.
Okay, fine. Incidents.
These tearful incidents. But I think one of them was with the bottles, because you're doing this for the first time. Mm-hmm. You've got, especially for a woman, there's all these like this pressure. There's these emotions going into this, and you've got all these lovely, well-meaning people giving you all this advice that you may or may not need. And, you've got, it's got to be BPA free. It's got to have this, it's got to, all these things. And I just remember her just in this aisle, just like weeping, and I'm just sitting here going, what have I got myself into? And, but we have this encouragement in 1 Peter that for husbands to dwell with their wife with understanding. Mm-hmm. As we develop that, and he has on there so that your prayers may not be hindered. Yeah. And I think too much of what we hear, even in the church culture, is, well, women can't live with them, can't live without them, Mm-hmm. But that's actually counter to what the scriptures are telling us, because as a husband, it is my job to attempt with God's power to understand my wife and what she's going through. And just stepping back and saying, I don't get it, actually hinders my prayers. And if there's anything that being a father has taught me, is I'm going to need my prayers not to be hindered. And so I think, it was a moment of kind of clarity for me of this realization of, men and women are drastically different without pregnancy in there. And when you throw pregnancy in there, it's sort of this microcosm of everything that you do as a husband. It's sort of amplified and under a microscope, because if you don't understand her when she wants the house cleaner than you do, you're really not going to understand her when she's weeping over baby bottles. Mm. And so just that part really kind of clarified for me my job as a husband.
Yeah, and I think what you guys are explaining, or what you're illustrating for us, is really that this book can be super valuable even if you're not expecting. And this is where, again, where I was, my oldest, Micah, is going to be 13, and my youngest is 11. And like I said before, my wife is decidedly not pregnant. But there was so much that I could still benefit from. The call from Peter to live with my wife according to knowledge, the wonder of it all. Because I talked to somebody else recently who made the observation that in a way, we're all new to this. It was Jay Holland from Let's Parent on Purpose who was talking about this. He just said, you've never parented this child at this age, in this culture, at this time in your life, in your time of maturation. So it's always a brand new experience. So even though a lot of the elements in the book are specifically about pregnancy, and it's great for especially a first-time dad who hasn't had guided his wife through this process before, super helpful stuff, but the spiritual truths go far beyond just those first 9 months and the first few weeks after pregnancy. These are things that need to stay with us for the rest of our lives. And the wonder of it all is part of that. Now, before I talk a little bit more about chapter 25, I want to share just this one scene that I really loved from the inductions chapter of the book. You wrote this, quote, "We have a woman in labor who just heard the doctor utter the phrase, emergency C-section. At this point, you must be there for your wife. You must be her rock, her Gibraltar. You cannot stand and tell the storm to be still like Jesus did, but you can sit by your wife and hold her while everyone rushes around her in a frenzied state. Plant yourself like an unmovable tree beside your wife, because this is what a man does. And because she has a grip on your hand from which the jaws of life could not free you."
Unquote. So
you read that really well. Like we should do the audiobook.
Yes. Well, I did a minor in interpretative speech in college. So, but I love the
theme. I love the challenge, and obviously the humorously accurate depiction of the state of your hand. It's all great. And Aaron, you refer to yourself as an expert pregnancy survivor. I love that. But your in-depth knowledge of the experience really shows at that point. I mean, it's so obvious that you really are an expert at this. But I think, again, the focus of the final chapter just really encapsulates, I think, the heartbeat of the entire book. But what I'd love for you to do now is, and you've done this already a little bit, but really sum up for us by applying kind of all of this to all dads and all moms who are listening, whether they have a newborn on the way or not. Because, again, I want people to read this book, not just, again, because of the pregnancy advice in it, which is fantastic, but because there really is something far more applicable to us, regardless of how many kids we have and what stage of life we're at.
You always hear it around Christmas time, which is unfortunate because we should hear it a lot more, but about Mary and about these things that the angels are telling her. And it says she treasured those things in her heart. And sort of like she kind of packs that away to remember. And I think that's one of those things that you have this day, and who knows how it's going to be. We had one time where the water broke and every other time was an induction. But you'll have these moments of like, hey, stop and take a breath. And, for lack of a way of putting it, kind of smell the roses a little bit, but stop and soak this in. Like, you don't know how many times this is going to happen. One of the things we discovered as a husband and wife, as we went to get pregnant, was how often things like miscarriages happen and infertility and those different things that we never knew about until we started going down this process ourselves. And you don't know. I mean, every kid is a gift from God, and you may have one. I'm an only child. That wasn't my parents' plan. It's what God had in mind. We've got 4. I've got friends with 6. You never know. You don't know how many times you're going to go down this road, and soak it in and just wonder and kind of bask in the glory of what God is doing, because this is such a God thing. No matter how many doctors and hospitals there are, this is all a God thing.
I was going to say, we had a miscarriage before Micah, before the zoologist, the 8-year-old. And then we had almost lost him when I was newly pregnant. And then we had a miscarriage after him before our second baby. And so you never know, exactly what God has planned.
And so for us, even as parents after childbirth, I think it's been a good discipline to have, to try to keep these things in our hearts. The kids' quotes we post on social media, that's part of that. Mm-hmm. Is that thing. Who would have thought a kid, our fashionista, when she was 3 years old, developed the habit of basically handling every difficulty by saying, well, sometimes things happen, and like she would, spill her milk. He'd be like, why did you spill your milk? Yeah, sometimes things happen.
She called her the philosopher.
Yeah, she really,
Yes.
but you keep that in your heart so that when that same child is 4 years old and she is throwing a wall-eyed fit because she wants a particular dress and it is too cold to wear that dress, that you keep that in your heart, and because it's going to help you deal with those things. And I think that's been very important, not just in the pregnancy part of life, but moving on into the parenting part of life, is taking these things and just treasuring them in your heart, because there will come a point in time where the memories will be what you will have. They'll be out of the house, and hopefully, you'll stay close, but they won't be there. You won't be changing their diapers. And at the moment, you're really excited about that, but there will be a day when you're going to want to have that treasured in your heart too.
Yeah, and you'll miss it, and believe it or not, you really will. I would reference being able to have the opportunity of portraying Christ on stage. I had one of my favorite memories from my daughter when she was really young happened while I was changing her diaper. I come in there and I had just had my hair and my beard dyed jet black. And she looks at me and she says, "Daddy, what happened to your hair?" And I said, "Oh, I dyed my hair." And she's like, "Okay." And she's, a little kid, getting her diaper changed. A few days later, we're in a store and we're standing in line, and she looks up at a complete stranger and goes, "My dad's hair dyed."
and it's and that's just a beautiful thing. I think I've worked a lot
with at-risk families, families with troubled teens and things like that. And the thing that I've often found is the fact that these families, they've been stripped of their joy, and they don't have fond memories of their children anymore. The fond memories are there, but they've been replaced with the struggle and the difficulty of right now. And sometimes that actually keeps them from being able to interact with their children in a truth and love type of a way, because, they're just so focused on getting the truth into this kid. And they've kind of, in a way, they've lost that love because of it's just a terrorist at home. Sometimes I encourage them, hey, remember who this child is, okay? Not just who they are to God, but who they are to you. Remember those times that you've had. Remember that they are so much like you. And then, use that as a connection to your kid, because it's just super important to make sure that familial love is there. And I think you said so many of the memories are going to be an important part of that. I really appreciate you guys spending this time with us today. I can only imagine what the zoologist and ballerina, fashionista, and Jedi have been up to for the past half hour. But I know that your time with us
and the time that you spent writing this book
has been well invested. So thank you so much for that. What's the best way for our audience to connect with you? Do you have any other resources for which they should be looking? Where can they find that stuff?
So, the one-stop shop for everything is our website, which is oursharpology.com. You can find pretty much anything there, links to social media. I think Elaina's got the social media handles.
Oh,
and the book we've done, The Most Important Women of the Bible, that we did together, and the other books we've written, you can find everything there. We also, as a way of kind of promoting this book and kind of having some fun with it, are doing some videos. We're calling it "You Got This, Dad," the series. And so you can find those on the books page on our website, and we've got a YouTube channel. And what it is we just take another dad, we put him in the minivan, we slap up some cameras, and we drive around, run through a drive-through while we're at it, and just talk pregnancy and fatherhood. And so we've released one of those episodes, and the next one should be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully by the time people are watching this, there'll be a handful of them out. But those are available on the YouTube channel and at our website as well. So
hey, guess what I forgot to do?
She doesn't have the links, folks.
That's okay.
Okay, so I do know Instagram is our_Sharpology.
And then Facebook is Our Sharpology.
Yes. And then what's your Twitter, babe?
I think it's Aaron E. Sharp. You would ask me that. I don't remember. It's been saved on my phone for so long. Who knows?
Exactly. Why does it?
The lesson learned here is just go to the website.
Exactly. Because you guys don't even know anything else.
Yeah.
You'll go to the
website to figure it out.
Yeah.
Probably.
Exactly.
Yep. Now I have a question about that whole that minivan thing. You don't do any karaoke while you do that?
No.
No karaoke.
The last thing anybody wants from me is karaoke. No.
I don't know. Actually, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'll check those videos out, because I think sometimes when you get guys, especially guys, because I think the stereotype is really sad that we don't open up, we're not real enough. But when you get guys being real about stuff like that, that's always very refreshing. So that sounds cool.
Yeah, the first one we did a 20-minute episode. So what we're going to do the next one is we're going to break it up and do 2 10-minute pieces, and we're kind of learning as we go, making it up a little bit. One of the things Elaina and I are very blessed to have is a lot of really talented friends, and so I've imposed on one of them with a production company to, hey, could you do this for free? And so
good friend.
A great friend to do that.
We're still friends for now. We'll see how far. But yeah, we've had a lot of fun doing it, and I think it's going to be really another good thing to do. So
I will say about their Instagram, I think what endeared me, like I had already decided we're going to do this interview. We had already been in touch, but I went on and I made sure that the TLP was following your guys' Instagram. And I saw this, I want to lead into it so I don't give it away. But okay, so if you know me, okay, and if you know me at all, I'm not a sports guy. Okay, so there are certain times of the year where social media is just a massive drag on my very life, because it's just sports. But you posted a bracket,
and I saw this bracket, and I was like, yes, that is a bracket behind which I can get fully, that 100%, I'm there.
Now, by the time this episode is published, no doubt the bracket will be over and you'll have to go and find out who won. But I want you to tell our audience about this bracket that I loved so much.
So, it's kind of interesting how things merge, right? Because when we did this, it was March. And so March normally is a season for March Madness and basketball brackets. And so everybody's talking about brackets. But, it's also coming kind of on the heels of, with the death of Kobe Bryant, a lot of people were talking about being a girl dad and different things. And so I reached out to a lot of my friends who are fathers who have more than one girl as a daughter, and I said, hey, let's do a Disney princess daughter bracket. And so
did Disney princess dad bracket.
Disney princess dad bracket, sorry. And
the most ignored characters in every Disney movie.
Well, and I gave everybody some leeway as far as what that, I said, we're going to vote, and here's how we'll do it. We're going to seed the bracket according to which movies made the most money. We're going to go with the official Disney princesses. So I'm sorry, Elsa and Anna are not in here. There's been a lot of grief about that, but I'm just what Disney says. And so we seeded them, and then we just vote. And it's like, you're just picking out which dad. I said, you can define this however you want to. If it's like the dad that you would want to hang out with, great. But you just pick a dad and give me some reasoning. So there was some real controversy over a couple of some of these contests. But it's been a lot of fun just to get the dads and get the reasoning and have a little fun with it. So
I think it's really funny how scientific you were in how you seeded them,
and then but like the actual voting process has been like
he put so much work into that. He really did.
I mean, I had to spend all this time figuring out how much money they made. But anyway, then a couple of dads were complaining because they're like, how can you have James from Tiana's dad going up against Faju from Mulan in the first round? That's not it. Anyway, it's been funny. When you're a dad and you've seen all these princess movies so many times, it just becomes part of your identity, so.
Well, my wife she is a character performer. So at any given time, I have been married to almost every single one of the princesses. If I had to give my wife a nickname, I don't even know which one I could choose. Maybe all of them would work. She's been Wonder Woman. She's been Tiana. But anyway, yeah. So I totally know what that's like, and that's why I liked it. I thought it was cool. But anyway, so I say all that just to say, it's fun. If you are on Instagram or Facebook, follow them. You'll enjoy it if nothing else, and maybe you might even be encouraged or learn something along the way too. Thank you guys so much for sharing your passion with us. Aaron and Elaina have already joined our stable of amazing special guests at Truth.Love.Parent.com. So you should go there. You should check them out. There you'll find obviously more information about them. You'll find links to their content. You'll also find a link to the book giveaway and also a link to You Got This Dad. Remember, if you purchase it from Amazon using our affiliate links, you will receive a great book. You'll be a blessing to the Sharp family, and TLP will earn a commission off the sale because that's how Amazon rolls, and I'm totally cool with that. So these are 3 great reasons to head over to TruthLoveParent.com and pick up a copy of You Got This Dad. Please also share this episode on your favorite social media outlets so your friends can find out about this book. And if you're a new dad or mom who has more questions than you have answers, please feel free to reach out to us at counselor@truthloveparent.com. We would love to offer you specialized counsel for your unique family situation. And remember, if we want our children to grow up into Christ, we must parent in truth. and love, and I think maybe the Sharps would even add humor. To that end, please join us next time as we continue our study of the spirit realm and ask the question, are demons wiser than our families?
Truth.Love.Family is part of the Evermind Ministries family and is dedicated to helping you become an intentional, premeditated parent. Join us next time as we search God's Word for the truth your family needs today.